The Island of Lost Spells. This is a pre-program paragraph-based adventure by Dark City Games. It is based on a system that derives from and is reminiscent of the old fantasy trip system of GURPS. There are just a couple of ideas here that if you used to play role-playing games back in the day, not even nowadays actually, some of these ideas here seen before. There's a certain component of nostalgia also in this system. Dark City Games publishes these adventures. They have some fantasy, sci-fi, and even some Western themed ones. And these are adventures that come with a booklet with all the paragraphs that you need to create the adventure, the rules to create your characters, and to figure out how to resolve situations such as combat. Then they have a map, a color map. I won't show you the entire map so I don't give you too many spoilers, but I wanted to point out that this color map here is much nicer than the black and white map that is on the main picture for this game on Board Game Geek. And also there are counters to represent the characters in the game. Yes, because it's paragraph based, so you jump from paragraph to create the story as the adventure progresses, but then when combat happens you resolve it on the board. You put counters representing the characters and you resolve that in a tactical way. Movement, attacks, spells. There is definitely a good combination here between RPG and a story that is created through the game in a narrative form, and on the other hand, the tactical experience of combat on a board. These are pretty much some of the standard ideas behind Dark City Games in general, and this is a system that I enjoyed in the past. Last year I played a couple of games by Dark City Games, but I hadn't played any in a while, so I decided to give a try to a new one that I had heard good things about and that I hadn't tried yet. The Island of Lost Spells. But before I proceed further with my review, I want to add the disclaimer here and a clarification. In case you think this is relevant, this very game, together with another game by Dark City Games, is going to be part of my upcoming Kickstarter campaign. It is going to be one of the thank you gifts that I will send to the backers of my campaign for a certain level of donation. In case you think you need to know that to have some context to place my review in, well, now you know it. I don't know if it's relevant to you or it is not. I put it out there. If nothing else, because I think if I don't say it, then people start imagining who knows what. In any case, The Island of Lost Spells. This is a fantasy adventure. It can be played by a single player as a choose your adventure type of book, or it can be played by a group with or without a game master. You may have a game master that knows the story already and has thought about how to flesh out some of the descriptions, how to add some of the details, or you may just have a bunch of friends picking up the book and starting from paragraph 1, everybody gets a character and they all read together and they discover the game and discover the world as the game progresses. Little warning here, there is a map at the end of the game, at the end of the book, with two main locations of the board, of the story. That means that if you're playing solitaire or without a GM, I recommend not looking at that page because there are spoilers there. It is much more fun when you're playing by yourself, in any case when you're not the GM, if you just draw your own map as the game goes along, as you discover and explore. So be sure you do not create a spoiler for yourself by looking at those maps too early in the game. If you are the game master, then of course that is a good reference tool. What happens here? What is the story? You and your party of heroes, even if you're playing by yourself, you will need several heroes, I believe, to survive the adventure. You and your party of heroes are looking for this library that has some old, ancient, and very powerful magical scrolls. You are thirsty for power, like fantasy heroes usually are, even the good ones. And so in your adventure, you will go and look for this fabled library full of lost spells, as the name says. And this library is located in a castle on an island. The adventure starts on a seaside village in which you will make your preparations for the trip. There are a lot of locations that you can visit in the village, more than maybe more than the usual fantasy village in which you just go and buy some weapons, buy some potions, and then you leave. There are characters here that you will meet, there are encounters, there are people that you will interact with. It is a good idea actually to spend some time there to figure out what may happen later, to gather information about the castle, about the library. It didn't feel like a preparation or just like a long introduction. It felt like a pretty vital, pretty organic part of the game. Then, of course, you had the trip to the island. You'll need to figure out a way to find a passage to the island, to find out for somebody to bring you there. And then, of course, you have the core adventure, the main adventure, about which I cannot tell you too much because I don't want to give any spoilers. Suffice to say that this is, in a way, a traditional dungeon crawl. Corridors, rooms, monsters, strange situations, magical situations, keys to find to open doors. Nothing that reinvents the wheel here, but the game and the system are, as I said earlier, an exercise in nostalgia to start with. They're meant to recapture the feel, the flavor of a certain type of golden age fantasy. So actually, if you look at things too strictly, sometimes there may be things that may strike as a little naive. I don't know. I'm creating an example out of the blue, so I won't give you any spoiler. Suppose that you have a room in which there are 3 tigers that are just there. You enter and you have to fight them. Then you exit the room, and next room there are 3 goblins that are eating dinner. And you wonder, how come that, I don't know, the goblins weren't scared about the tigers weren't trying to get to the goblins. What happens here? Of course, if you go from room to room, there are situations to face, adventures, interesting challenges for you. But of course, if you look at the big picture, sometimes things may look a little funny. But it is part of the suspension of disbelief that I think must come with certain types of fantasy RPGs for them to be enjoyable. And of course, if you're willing to suspend your disbelief to enjoy an immersion in a fantasy world in which crazy stuff happens, and this is not supposed to be a 100% realistic world, then of course you can enjoy it. And enjoy it I did, because again, this is a traditional adventure in a way, but as I said, there are discoveries to make, there are clues to gather. It is not just about move and fight. Also because some of the encounters are pretty deadly, and I think that the point is that they're meant to be like that, because there are ways to figure out how to avoid them. So you may miss those clues, and then you have to face a very tough fight, or you may be able to figure out. So I found a good balance there between figuring things out and fighting and destroying enemies and destroying monsters and casting spells. Good balance between all the traditional elements that you have in good fantasy RPG and in similar fantasy adventures that I played before in games by Dark City Games. I will not tell you too many more things because, again, do not want to give any spoilers. I don't want to ruin the experience of playing the game for you. But I want to tell you that I played The Island of Lost Spells. I found it a nice challenge. I found it interesting in that it has both enough story and enough adventure to keep me hooked, to keep me wanting to explore and discover things. The best things, of course, I cannot mention for the reasons that I mentioned above, so I'll ask you to trust me a little bit on this one, but again, trust me, and I can tell that The Island of Lost Spells is definitely a solid chapter in the series of fantasy games by Dark City Games.